Breaking news right here at 5 o'clock. Police have found human remains in a car in Lake Powell.
They've matched the car to Dennis Dillinger. He's been missing since the end of 2023. You're getting a good look at the car here. Investigators haven't confirmed, though, that the remains inside are Dillinger. Police did send those remains to the state medical examiner's office.
What could cause a man to vanish without a trace? What secrets lay hidden in the shadows of the desert? Today, we dive into the baffling case of Dennis Keith Dillinger, a name that echoes in the hearts of those who love him, and a mystery that continues to haunt the living. Would you be brave enough to face the unknown? In December 2023, Dennis Keith Dillinger disappeared under circumstances that have left investigators scratching their heads. At just 54 years old, Dennis was last seen in Kanab, Utah, at a family dollar store. Imagine the scene. A man, perhaps picking up last-minute supplies, walks out into the vast, unforgiving landscape of the American Southwest, never to be seen again. His truck, a silver and dark gray 1991 Dodge Dakota, was found submerged in Lake Powell nearly 2 years later, a chilling reminder of the mystery that enveloped his fate. What happened during those lost days? Could someone have seen him? Could someone be hiding the truth? Before we unravel this gripping tale, take a moment to subscribe. You don't want to miss out on uncovering the secrets of unsolved mysteries like this one. You never know when a case like this could hit closer to home. As we piece together the timeline, we find that Dennis was last known to be near Big Water on the morning of December 2. He was using Facebook Messenger just before he vanished, but the messages were never retrieved. What could he have been discussing? Was he reaching out for help? The investigation took off with fervor. Local authorities scoured the area, interviewing friends and family, piecing together a puzzle that seemed almost impossible to solve. Yet, despite their best efforts, the trail went cold. Imagine being in Dennis's family's shoes, desperately searching for answers and finding only silence. If you're watching this and think it could happen to anyone, drop a comment below about what you fear could happen if we don't pay attention to these stories. Your voice matters. But the story doesn't end there. As the months turned into years, hope began to fade. The family made public appeals for information, drawing attention to his case, yet the vastness of the desert swallowed their cries. What if this were your loved one? Wouldn't you want someone to care? As we delve deeper into Dennis's life, we learned that he was a man full of dreams, both big and small. A son, a brother, and a friend. He had plans, ambitions, and people who loved him. The haunting questions linger. Why did he leave? Why hasn't anyone come forward with information? Before we continue, I urge you to subscribe. You never know when a story like Dennis's could resonate with you. Don't wait until it's too late to uncover the truth. Let's stand together in seeking justice for those who cannot speak for themselves. The vastness of the desert is both beautiful and terrifying. It holds secrets we may never understand. As we continue this journey, question everything you think you know about missing persons, because in the end, we're all just a heartbeat away from becoming a mystery ourselves.
What happens when a person vanishes without a trace? In the case of Dennis Keith Dillinger, the search for answers is fraught with questions, dead ends, and chilling discoveries. What secrets does the desert hold, and who will be brave enough to uncover them? The disappearance of Dennis Keith Dillinger sent ripples through his community, but as the days turned into weeks, the urgency of the investigation became palpable. Law enforcement agencies sprang into action, but they quickly found themselves facing a daunting challenge. With no eyewitnesses and little evidence, the investigation would require more than just diligence. It would need a miracle. On December 1, 2023, Dennis was last spotted at the Family Dollar store in Kanab, Utah. What could have transpired in those moments between his last sighting and his disappearance? The store's surveillance footage was reviewed meticulously, yet it offered no clues. How could a man just disappear? Imagine the fear that gripped his family as they reported him missing. If this were your loved one, wouldn't you feel that same dread? Take a moment to subscribe if you believe that every missing person deserves attention and justice. Don't let their stories fade into silence. As investigators canvassed the area, they interviewed friends and family, piecing together Dennis's last known movements. They learned that he had been planning a trip, possibly headed to Lake Powell or the Superstition Mountains. The desert landscape can be unforgiving, but could it also be hiding something more sinister? If you're watching this, what would you do if this were your last known location? Would you feel safe? Leave a comment below sharing your thoughts on the vulnerability we all face. The investigation took a more unsettling turn when authorities began to speculate about the possibility of foul play. How could they not? The sheer absence of any physical evidence suggested a deeper mystery at play. Could Dennis have met someone during his trip? Did he cross paths with the wrong person at the wrong time? As the months dragged on, the case began to grow cold. Despite the family's emotional appeals and the community's support, tips dwindled. Each passing day felt like a cruel reminder of their loss. Subscribe now if you feel the weight of their anguish. Your support means that you stand with the families who are left in the dark, waiting for answers that may never come. Don't be a bystander, be a part of the solution.
With time running out, the search for Dennis expanded beyond Utah. Flyers were distributed in neighboring states, and social media campaigns gained traction. But as hope began to wane, new developments emerged that would reignite the investigation. In September 2025, a vehicle was spotted submerged at Lone Rock Beach in the Glen Canyon National Recreation Area. Could this be Dennis's truck? The anticipation was electric, but so was the fear. What if it was too late? What if you were the last person to see someone before they disappeared? How would you live with that knowledge? If you feel the urgency to uncover the truth, hit that subscribe button. Let's not allow these stories to slip through our fingers.
What lies beneath the surface of a tranquil lake? In the haunting case of Dennis Keith Dillinger, a submerged truck has emerged from the depths, stirring a whirlwind of emotions, hope, and despair. What secrets will investigators uncover, and could this be the breakthrough that finally brings clarity to a family shattered by loss? As the sun dipped below the horizon on September 3, 2025, casting an orange glow over Lake Powell, a monumental discovery was about to unfold. The water, usually serene and inviting, had held a dark secret for nearly 2 years. The retrieval of a silver and dark gray 1991 Dodge Dakota truck marked a pivotal moment in the investigation into Dennis Keith Dillinger's mysterious disappearance. The moment the vehicle was hoisted from the depths, the atmosphere was electric with tension. Investigators, family members, and community members alike stood on the shore, anxiously awaiting what the truck might reveal. Would it hold the answers they had been searching for, or would it deepen the enigma surrounding Dennis's fate? As the muddy water dripped from the truck, memories flooded back for Dennis's family. They recalled the last time they saw him, his laughter, his dreams, and the plans he had made. Would this vehicle be the key to understanding what had happened to their beloved husband, father, brother, and friend? Imagine the weight of hope and despair that hung in the air. If you're feeling for Dennis's family, consider subscribing to our channel. Your support can help keep their story alive, ensuring that no one is forgotten in their search for truth. Once the truck was fully recovered, investigators began a meticulous examination of its contents. It was more than just a vehicle, it was a potential treasure trove of evidence. What would they find inside? Personal belongings? Clues that could unravel the mystery? Or something even more disturbing?
As the forensic team approached the truck, a collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Inside, they discovered human remains that were later confirmed to belong to Dennis. The revelation sent shockwaves through the community, a mix of relief and horror flooding the hearts of those who had been waiting for answers. The truck, once a symbol of freedom and adventure, had transformed into a haunting reminder of a life cut short. For Dennis's family, the anguish was palpable. They had spent nearly 2 years grappling with uncertainty, and now they faced the painful reality of his death. How could someone so full of life disappear without a trace, only to be found in such a tragic state? Imagine being in their shoes, having your worst fears confirmed. If you feel for them, take a moment to reflect on the fragility of life. Every subscription to our channel is a step toward honoring the memories of those lost, so let's make sure their stories are not forgotten. As detectives began to piece together the timeline leading to Dennis's death, they faced a daunting task. What had happened in those final days? Was it an accident, or was there foul play involved? The investigation took on a new urgency as they sought to answer these critical questions. Reports indicated that Dennis was last seen on December 1, 2023, at the Family Dollar store in Kanab, Utah. Eyewitnesses recalled his demeanor as cheerful and relaxed, a man simply going about his day. But what had transpired after he left the store? The next day, December 2, his cell phone pinged near Big Water, suggesting he was headed toward Lake Powell. As investigators analyzed his phone records, they uncovered a troubling pattern. He had been active on Facebook Messenger shortly before his disappearance. What conversations had he been having? Were they mundane chats, or did they hint at something more sinister? What if you had the ability to help someone in distress, but didn't realize it until it was too late? Your voice matters. And subscribing to our channel means standing up for those who can no longer speak for themselves. As the investigation deepened, detectives faced a complex web of possibilities. Could Dennis have encountered someone who meant him harm? Did he accidentally wander into a dangerous situation? The questions multiplied, but the answers remained frustratingly out of reach. In the meantime, Dennis's family was left to grapple with the emotional aftermath of these discoveries. They had fought tirelessly to keep his memory alive, making public appeals for information that often went unanswered. Now, it felt as if their worst fears had materialized, and the haunting silence that had enveloped their lives for so long was abruptly shattered. In the following weeks, the Kane County Sheriff's Office and the Page Police Department conducted extensive investigations into the circumstances surrounding Dennis's disappearance and death. They canvassed the area, seeking anyone who might have seen or heard something unusual during that time. The community rallied around the Dillinger family, sharing flyers and spreading the word, but their efforts often felt like shouting into a void. As the investigation continued, more questions arose. What could the truck reveal? Was there any physical evidence that could point to a cause of death or a potential suspect? The forensic team meticulously combed through the vehicle, searching for fingerprints, DNA, or anything that could help them piece together the final moments of Dennis's life. The emotional toll on Dennis's family was immense. They found themselves oscillating between hope and despair, clinging to the possibility that justice might be served, while grappling with the reality of their loss. Each day felt like an eternity, and every update from law enforcement brought a mix of anxiety and anticipation. If you've ever felt the pain of losing someone or feared for the safety of a loved one, let this story resonate with you. Subscribe to our channel to stand in solidarity with families seeking answers and justice. As autumn approached, the investigation began to shift focus. The forensic team had made significant progress in analyzing the evidence found in the truck, but the results were not immediate. Each day that passed without clear answers felt like a dagger in the hearts of Dennis's family, leaving them to wonder if they would ever find the closure they so desperately sought. One day, as they gathered to remember Dennis, they shared stories of his kindness, humor, and the way he would light up a room. They spoke of his dreams, his aspirations, and the plans he had for the future. It was a bittersweet reunion, a reminder of the joy he brought into their lives and the emptiness his absence left behind. The community continued to support the Dillinger family, organizing vigils and fundraisers to raise awareness for missing persons cases. The collective grief transformed into a determination to ensure that no one else would suffer the same fate. Together, they vowed to keep Dennis's memory alive, to honor his life by fighting for justice. As the investigation progressed, the family held on to hope that the findings from the forensic analysis would lead to breakthroughs. They knew that every detail mattered, that the smallest piece of evidence could unlock a world of possibilities. But uncertainty loomed large. What if the answers they sought were buried in the depths of Lake Powell, forever lost to time? What if they never learned the truth? Despite these fears, the Dillinger family remained resolute. They understood that the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but they were determined to see it through. They would not let Dennis's story fade into obscurity. They would fight for him, for the truth, and for the love that would never die. What happens when the truth is finally within reach, but the pain of loss remains? In the wake of Dennis Keith Dillinger's tragic discovery, his family stands at a crossroads, facing both anguish and the hope of justice. How will they navigate this emotional landscape, and what will it take to heal their broken hearts? The discovery of Dennis Keith Dillinger's remains marked a significant turning point, yet it also opened the floodgates to overwhelming emotions for his family. After nearly 2 years of uncertainty, they had finally received the confirmation they had feared. Their beloved Dennis had not just vanished, he had tragically lost his life. In the days following the news, the Dillinger family was engulfed in a whirlwind of grief. As they gathered to mourn, each family member processed the loss in their own way. For Dennis's siblings, it meant confronting the reality that their brother would never again join them for family dinners or laugh at old inside jokes. For his parents, the pain was even more profound. The loss of a child is a wound that never fully heals. If you've ever lost someone dear to you, you know the weight of that grief. Take a moment to subscribe and support stories like Dennis's that remind us to cherish every moment with our loved ones. Together, we can keep their memories alive.
Amidst the mourning, a sense of urgency began to rise within the family. They knew that the investigation was far from over. The Kane County Sheriff's Office was working diligently, but families of missing persons often feel the need to take matters into their own hands. They started organizing community events to raise awareness about Dennis's case, hoping that someone might hold the key to understanding what had happened. Each flyer they distributed, each social media post they shared, was a plea for help. They spoke about their brother, his dreams, and his undying love for adventure. They emphasized that he was not just a name on a missing persons list. He was a human being with a life, a story, and a family that loved him fiercely. As time passed, the emotional toll began to shift. While the initial shock of loss was still fresh, the family found solace in their unity. They leaned on one another, sharing stories about Dennis that brought laughter amid the tears. They celebrated his life, recounting his quirks, his passions, and the moments that made him who he was. Yet, the shadow of unanswered questions loomed large. What had happened in those final moments? Why had he been in that remote location? The uncertainty gnawed at them, driving them to seek out the truth with an intensity fueled by love and desperation. Picture yourself in their shoes. Wouldn't you want every detail, every piece of the puzzle to be uncovered? Join us in seeking justice by subscribing to our channel. Together, we can amplify the voices of those who are fighting for answers. The forensic analysis of the truck and the remains was ongoing, and the family clung to the hope that the results would provide clarity. Each phone call from law enforcement brought with it a mix of anticipation and dread. Would this be the update they had longed for, or would it bring more heartache? As the weeks turned into months, the investigation began to yield results. The medical examiner's office confirmed the identity of the remains, but the cause of death remained undetermined. This left the family in a painful limbo, yearning for answers, but facing the possibility that they might never know what truly happened. During this time, the community rallied around the Dillinger family. Vigils were held and donations poured in to support their efforts in raising awareness about Dennis's case. Local news outlets covered the story and social media campaigns gained traction. Each post, each share felt like a step closer to justice, not just for Dennis, but for all missing persons. If you believe in the power of community and the importance of raising awareness about these cases, now is the time to act. Subscribe and join us in making sure that no one is forgotten, that every voice is heard. As the family continued their advocacy, they also sought counseling to help them navigate the complex emotions they were experiencing. Grief can be isolating, but they learned that sharing their feelings was crucial to finding healing. They attended support groups for families of missing persons and connected with others who understood their pain. Through this journey, they discovered the importance of storytelling. Every shared memory of Dennis became a way to keep his spirit alive. They realized that while the investigation was crucial, so was honoring his legacy. They began to speak publicly about the need for improved resources for missing persons cases, advocating for better training for law enforcement and increased funding for search efforts. Their efforts started gaining recognition. Local leaders began to take notice, and soon the Dillinger family found themselves at the forefront of a movement aimed at bringing attention to missing persons cases across the state. They were no longer just a grieving family. They were advocates for change, determined to ensure that no one else would suffer in silence.
As they stood before their community, sharing Dennis's story, they felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were fighting not just for answers for themselves, but for every family who had faced a similar nightmare. They were determined to ensure that the lives of the missing were not merely statistics, but stories worth telling. In this fight for justice, every voice counts. If you're moved by their resilience and want to support their cause, hit that subscribe button. Together, we can shine a light on the darkness that surrounds missing persons cases. As the investigation continued, new leads began to emerge. Law enforcement announced they were pursuing several promising tips that could potentially shed light on Dennis's final days. The family held their breath, clinging to the hope that they might finally get the answers they had been seeking. Each day brought the possibility of new developments. The Dillinger family learned that the community's support had made a difference. Tips were coming in, and investigators were following leads they might not have pursued without the renewed interest in the case. But with each glimmer of hope came the shadows of doubt. What if the truth was too painful to bear? What if they discovered something that shattered the memories they held dear? The emotional roller coaster was exhausting, yet they pressed on, determined to uncover the truth, no matter how difficult it might be. As they waited for updates, they leaned on one another for support. They spent evenings reminiscing about Dennis, sharing their favorite stories and finding joy in the memories, even amid the pain. They knew that while they might never fully heal from their loss, they could honor Dennis by living their lives to the fullest, just as he would have wanted. When the dust settles and the answers finally emerge, what does it mean for those left behind? In the case of Dennis Keith Dillinger, the journey toward resolution is fraught with emotion, heartache, and the enduring quest for justice. How will his family find closure, and what legacy will they carry forward? The search for closure in the case of Dennis Keith Dillinger reached a critical juncture as investigators continued to sift through the evidence unearthed from the submerged truck. After months of anticipation, the family awaited the results of the forensic analysis that would finally provide clarity regarding Dennis's cause of death. Would it be the answers they had longed for, or would it shatter the fragile peace they had begun to find? As the days passed, the Dillinger family remained resolute in their advocacy, organizing community events to keep Dennis's story alive. They shared flyers, hosted vigils, and spoke to local media, all while balancing their emotional turmoil. Each time they spoke about Dennis, they felt a sense of empowerment. They were not just grieving, they were fighting for the truth. Imagine standing at the crossroads between grief and advocacy, where every word spoken could help another family in need. If you believe in the power of community and the importance of keeping these stories alive, consider subscribing to our channel. Your support matters. The moment they had been waiting for finally arrived. The medical examiner's office contacted the family with the results of their analysis. The Dillinger family gathered together, hearts racing and voices trembling, as they prepared to hear the news. The weight of anticipation hung heavily in the air. When they received the call, the forensic pathologist explained that the cause of death had been ruled as accidental drowning. It was a relief to know that Dennis had not fallen victim to foul play, but the finality of the confirmation hit them hard. They had hoped for a different outcome, one that might provide them with a clearer narrative of what had transpired during his final days. Dennis had spent his last moments in the vastness of Lake Powell, likely disoriented and alone. The thought was unbearable. He was a man who had loved adventure, who had explored the beauty of the world around him. How could he have met such a tragic end? If you've ever faced the painful reality of losing a loved one, you know how difficult it is to find closure. Take a moment to reflect on the impact of those we've lost and consider subscribing to our channel to support families navigating their own heart-wrenching journeys. In the wake of the confirmation, the Dillinger family faced an emotional reckoning. They had fought so hard for answers, yet the knowledge of Dennis's fate brought them no peace. Instead, it raised new questions. How had he ended up in that remote area? Did he face difficulties that could have been prevented? Were there signs they had missed in his life that could have alerted them to his struggles? As they processed the news, they reflected on Dennis's life. He had been a beacon of light in their lives, a man full of dreams and ambitions. They recalled his laughter, his kindness, and the way that he had always been there for them. In a way, they were grateful for the memories that kept him alive in their hearts. The family made a collective decision. They would honor Dennis's memory by advocating for improved resources for missing persons and mental health awareness. They realized that many individuals face struggles that go unnoticed, and they wanted to ensure that others would not have to endure what they had experienced. They began working with local lawmakers, pushing for legislation that would allocate more funding for search and rescue operations for missing persons. They also partnered with mental health organizations to raise awareness about the importance of seeking help. Their fight became a mission, a way to channel their grief into something meaningful.
As they shared their story with lawmakers and community leaders, they saw their message resonate. The Dillinger family became a symbol of resilience, reminding everyone that behind every missing person is a story worth telling. They met with other families who had faced similar tragedies, forming a network of support that would help them all navigate the complexities of grief and advocacy together. The community continued to rally around the Dillinger family as they pushed for change. Vigils became more than just remembrances, they became calls to action. The family encouraged attendees to share their own stories, fostering a sense of connection and solidarity among those who had experienced loss. If you've ever felt the call to make a difference, now is the time. Subscribe to our channel to join us in raising awareness and advocating for those who have been lost. Together, we can make sure their stories are never forgotten. As the Dillinger family continued their advocacy work, they found themselves healing in ways that they had never expected. The act of sharing Dennis's story became a source of strength, reminding them that love never dies. They learned to celebrate his life rather than dwell solely on his tragic ending. In time, the family organized an annual event in Dennis's honor, a day dedicated to raising awareness about missing persons and celebrating the lives of those who had been lost. They invited speakers, shared resources, and created a space for families to come together, fostering a community that understood the weight of their shared experiences. As they stood together on that first anniversary, looking out at a crowd that had gathered to support their cause, they felt a sense of hope. The journey had been fraught with pain,
But through it all, they had found purpose. They had transformed their grief into action, ensuring that Dennis's memory would live on in the hearts of many. In the months following the event, the Dillinger family received news that their advocacy efforts were making a difference. Local lawmakers began to consider policies aimed at increasing funding for search and rescue operations, driven by the stories shared by families like theirs. The momentum was palpable, and they knew they were on the right path. As they continued to push for change, the Dillinger family also found comfort in one another. They leaned on each other, reminiscing about the good times they had shared with Dennis. They opened up about their feelings, allowing vulnerability to bridge the gaps created by grief. If you've ever felt the need for a supportive community, remember that you're not alone. Your subscription can help us build a network of support for families like the Dillinger family, ensuring that we stand together in the face of loss. In the end, the case of Dennis Keith Dillinger became more than just a tragic story. It became a catalyst for change. The family learned that while they could not change what had happened, they could honor Dennis by advocating for others. They committed to ensuring that no one else would have to experience the agonizing uncertainty that had engulfed their lives. As the sun set on another day, the Dillinger family reflected on their journey. The road ahead would still be challenging, but they knew they were not alone. They had each other, a community that cared, and a mission that would keep Dennis's memory alive. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the case of Dennis Keith Dillinger. If you've been moved by his story, consider subscribing to our channel to support ongoing efforts to raise awareness about missing persons and to honor those who have gone before us. Together, we can make sure their stories are never forgotten.